Hey guys, welcome back to the other side of the coin. We've got a lot to talk about in a very, I suppose, boring type of match, but there's still some little things here and there that we can, get ourselves in this conversation, really dig into it. And before we do all of that, I've got my lovely guest, Jam, back again. I mean, he's going to be one of the very regular fixtures in this channel from here on in. I think the viewers from last time enjoyed him as well. And yeah, Jam, how you doing, my man?
Yeah, all good. Thanks, Miz. Glad to be back. I'm looking forward to featuring regularly. Yeah, it was great fun last time, and yeah, looking forward to many more. It's a shame in a way about the match result, but we'll get into that anyway.
Brilliant, man, brilliant. Yeah, I can't wait to have you on a regular basis. But let's get straight into this. First of all, I want to start off with the statement. There's been a lot of talks after the match, and a lot of pundits and a lot of other sort of experts in the game have said that both teams played in a particular manner where it was cautious. They were both cautious of each other. They didn't want to throw too much risk into the game. And they played in the sense that they didn't want to make a mistake. That was their first attitude, that I don't want to make a mistake. Whatever happens, I want to be solid. And many people were sort of saying that both played in the sense that they both believe they can possibly win the league. So they don't want to sort of go out of this match thinking, that's 0 points and one goes away with three. They're both sort of, well, I suppose, somewhat happy with the nil-all, thinking this is a long run and we could possibly win the league. Is that how you sort of saw the match as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Both managers and teams thought, let's not lose this game. I think it hurts more the fact that obviously Chelsea and Tottenham are big rivals. We wouldn't want to give them 3 points. They wouldn't want to give us 3 points in that sense. Yeah, I think when you look at it long term, a draw at this point in the season in such a game, probably not the worst result in the world. But I think Tottenham come away better than Chelsea. They would prefer that to come away from Stamford Bridge with a point than we would, coming out of that game. No doubt about that. And that's what's irking me a little bit. They're going away with a smile on their face and we're a bit frustrated, let's say.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree with that. And it's funny, I wanted to actually talk about this particular comment later down, but I think it's a perfect segue off what you've just said. Jose comes out after the match saying that, I'm not happy with this. None of the players are happy with this particular draw. We came here to win. Let's not beat around the bush. And I know we're going to talk about the performances. That second half from Spurs, they did nothing. First half, they had a couple of chances, I suppose. But second half, they had nothing. If anything, we had some clear-cut chances that we should have put away, which we'll touch on. But Jose must have been happy at the end of the match, as you said, to come away from that nil away from home.
Yeah. I mean, I said it in my review video, it's a Jose Snorlax special. That was just dead football, man. I mean, to come out and say those comments, that's just typical Jose. He's just trying to get under Frank's skin, trying to get under, Chelsea fan skin and player skins. And, he has this way of making sure that all the Tottenham players and fans are on his side as well and think, yeah, well, we actually went out there to try and win, or we're annoying the opposition. Good. Go on, Jose. I love him for that. That's what the Tottenham fans would be saying. It's ridiculous. It was the complete opposite. Everyone knows that after watching that game, that we were the only team trying to win that. I mean, to be fair to Tottenham, in the first half, they actually looked more dangerous than us in a sense on the counter-attack. And then they came out in the second half, saw that we upped the ante, and they weren't interested. They just shut up shop, and that was the end of that. Even letting long balls from Chelsea run through to Lloris and like the 65th minute. I think at that point I knew it was just game over. So frustrating.
Obviously, as I said, we're going to touch on the first half, second half assessment and the whole match assessment. But before we get into all of that, let's talk about the lineup. I think just a few minutes on the lineup. Personally, when I looked at the Chelsea lineup, I thought that's pretty straightforward. That's probably what I expected as well, off the back of players like Pulisic and Havertz still probably not match fit as yet. You could probably say, okay, Callum Hudson-Odoi and Timo Werner, did he need a rest? But I think we've all sort of agreed throughout the week, this is a match that Timo had to play. Yes, he needs a bit of break, but he can probably get that in the next game against Sevilla in Champions League, or perhaps not. But whatever the case is, this wasn't the game for him to get a break. So overall, in my perspective, the lineup was pretty much spot on from Frank Lampard. Is that how you felt as well in regards to how we shaped up against the Spurs team, which was a solid team, mind you?
Yeah. You've got it spot on, Biz. I mean, I thought the lineup was fine. No problems with it, with the starting lineup at least. Why change what was working, at least before that game? Tammy was in the starting team on merit. You can argue Giroud could have maybe pushed for him, for a starting spot, but Tammy's got more minutes in his legs. Werner had to start this game. We just know what he's all about. Yeah, he's been a little bit off form, but he's still creating those chances. He's still getting those chances, so had to start. Of course, Ziyech had to start as well. So, and the midfield, I mean, I think one of the other things was the debates before the game was Kovacic or Havertz. And I think the right decision was made. And actually, Alex Goldberg made a very good point on Twitter on Sunday morning on someone's tweet. He said that Havertz obviously was recovering from COVID. And you can see examples of other players where it's taken a little bit longer than expected, because it affects your breathing and all of that. So no wonder he's probably not getting as many minutes right now as we would have hoped. So actually, I think the starting lineup was spot on. The only thing which was more of an afterthought, was Callum Hudson-Odoi not being on the bench. Now, I understand why Frank may have done it. I like Cho, and I'm not saying that Cho's better than Pulisic or Havertz, but you can't, no matter who you are, you can't get away with not playing minutes. Now, Havertz and Pulisic haven't had many minutes at all in the last few weeks. Would Cho have made more of an impact off the bench? I mean, that's the question I'm asking. He probably would have. So that's the only thing that's maybe irking me a little bit. But, other than that, it was good.
No, you're right, man. I think Cho not being in the bench kind of, I suppose it's that overall frustration throughout the season where he finds some minutes, sometimes he's not in the bench, and then last match, it was a really, really good match for him against Rennes, which, we've all agreed through our social media that was probably one of his best performances. And then all of a sudden in this game, as you're saying, how do you not have Pulisic, but at the same time, he's not match fit, shows more of match fit. It does pose a question about Callum Hudson-Odoi's future once again as to what's going on. If he can't feature in these type of matches in the bench against a player that's not being match fit in the sense of Pulisic, it does sort of start to question. But nonetheless, that's I guess for another topic and another day, which is a far bigger topic. But I'm sure we'll cover it down the track. Now, I want to talk about some assessments of the first half, second half, more get into the nitty gritty of this whole thing.
Yeah.
First half, the way I felt was, as you've already mentioned, that both teams kind of had their chances, but Spurs probably had some clear-cut chances. There was a Bergwijn chance in the beginning. There was another chance, I can't remember. I think it's Serge Aurier, which was a great save from Mendy. One of the things that I want to start off with in the second half is, in the first half, is that our 4-3-3, which is fantastic. I think that's the formation we should play.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if you've noticed this. I've noticed a couple of times in the first half specifically, not so much in the second half because Spurs really didn't have a go at us in the second half. In the first half, what happened was Spurs midfield. So Kante is the lone DM, right? So he sits deep, and you've got the attacking eights. What happens is when the attacking eights are going up, but they're not tracking quickly back, is Kante is quick enough to cover side to side. That's great, but when Spurs stack up the midfield all in a line and that ball squares in, you have our defense drop deep and Kante is right in front, and you have all these Spurs midfielders lined up. Hence why we saw Sergio Aurier with that shot. There was a couple other times where they didn't end up getting the shot in, but they were in a dangerous position just outside the box. How do you, I suppose, do you think the personnels that we have, as much as Kovacic probably had a very good game in terms of with the ball, also off the ball he had a decent game, but do you think the personnel, Mason Mount and Kovacic, as much as we've always said that they're great, but do they need to be far more robust when they're going up and they've got to come back? Like, I guess someone in the sense of, when you see Spurs like Sissoko or Ndombele, they're such engines when they're going up and down. Do you think that could be an issue against even bigger teams? Like Spurs is a very good team, but in the likes of Bayern Munich or whoever else, if we do face them, that they could eat us up in that midfield?
Yeah, I think unfortunately it is a limitation that we have. You're right, they need to be more robust. And Spurs were really trying to exploit that, I mean, you have to go with relative examples of other teams that play a 4-3-3. Look at Liverpool. Their midfield's so functional. You wouldn't necessarily say that any of them are the best players in the world, but Wijnaldum, Fabinho, Jordan Henderson, these guys are so functional going both ways. And I think we've got it going forward with Kovacic and Mount in that sense. But going back is a little bit... I mean, Mount can win the ball, we know this, but physically it's a bit tough on him, especially if the other eight isn't that physical in himself. It's a bit of a problem. Maybe long term, it's one of the areas we might need to address with a bit more of a physical player. I mean, we were linked with Partey at one point. Maybe he would have been quite good in that sense. But Spurs were really trying to exploit that, and I do worry maybe about that in the big games. We almost need to score first, maybe. And kind of maintain possession of the ball and try and avoid those potential breaks. But yeah, I think in the end we got the balance right in the second half, which we'll come to, I suppose.
No, absolutely, man. I just hope that that's something that Frank is focusing on, in the sense that, we might have gotten away a few times yesterday, and Kante most times saves us in those situations. I think against more sort of robust teams in the likes of Bayern and whatnot, that or even who are the other teams, even PSG or whatnot, we could come up. It could be a bit difficult. But let's talk about now, I suppose, defensively in the first half, we look fairly all right in terms of Thiago Silva, Zuma, Chilwell, Reece James. Let's talk about Reece James, man. I was really impressed. I'm actually genuinely very impressed with this particular player's growth. I can't recall a single match this season so far where he's been poor. But once again, he puts on another fantastic performance. Your thoughts on his work yesterday against Spurs?
Well, I personally would always still want my fullback to be better defensively than they are offensively. And he's just so good defensively. His positioning's improved, but physically, he's just such an intimidating player to come up against. He doesn't miss his tackles. He's just so solid. I absolutely love it. And, after the first half, going forward in the second half, he really, really turned it up. I think he realised maybe if there was one criticism, he was just a little bit too passive. Gary Neville said it at halftime on Sky Sports about both players, both Ben Chilwell and Reece James, not being positive with their first touch and trying to help break down the Spurs bus. So as soon as he realised that, Lampard also must have brought it up at halftime. He was just gunning for them, and the balance was perfect. And he's a player I feel bad for in a sense. When I do my own reviews, I haven't really mentioned him enough, but I need to start bigging him up even more. The consistency is unreal, honestly, mate. I call him Reece the Hulk James now. I mean, he deserves that title, man.
Absolutely. And we're going to get onto his second half performance, which was far more impressive than the first half with the crosses and whatnot. But continuing on with the first half assessment, Ziyech for me was very off in that first half. The caliber of player he is, you'd expect these other type of matches where I look at Ziyech as a leader of our attacking sort of unit. And
100%.
In the second half, yes, he did come into sort of a little bit of more of his ways, but sticking to the first half performance, I literally saw none of Ziyech. Like, he wasn't even there most of the times. I suppose there was that one chance where he did put Werner through, and Werner with the offside, he scored, great finish. But besides that, there wasn't much there. How do you, I suppose, ignite a player, to come into more of an impact in these sort of matches from the get-go? Like, what do you say, or what happens, or how do you sort of get them G'd up?
Yeah, do you know what I think it is? I mean, looking back at that game, I think he was a little bit isolated on the right wing. I think Spurs were doing a bit of a number on him, doubling up on him, and it was very hard for us to progress the ball to him, especially when we were being a bit pragmatic ourselves. So I wanted him to come more centrally, which he did eventually, but we'll get to that. And sometimes in matches, first of all, there is such a thing as too many football matches, and it's hard to maintain a level of consistency over, so many matches in a short space of time. I know he hasn't always played, but it can just wear you down. Secondly, sometimes it's just not your day. It could you come out and you feel cold, and I know it's a bit different for these pros, but sometimes it's just not your day. And when you have a slow start like that, because Spurs were doing a number on him, you mix the two together. It just took him ages to get into it. I think how you ignite such a player is you get the ball to them as much as possible from the get-go. We did, and it just worked out that it was the complete opposite, and that must have been Spurs' game plan. And after that, he just found it a little bit difficult, to be fair. But it happens, it does happen. I don't really hold it against him too much. Next game he's probably going to turn it all around and be our best player again. So, yeah, we'll wait and see.
Absolutely right, because second half, you're spot on about giving more of the ball to him, so he just feels more involved in the game. Second half, That's exactly what happened. And let's now talk a little bit about the second half. Where I think the first half we've pretty much covered what was going on. Second half, in regards to Ziyech, he started to drop deep a little bit more, started playing a lot closer to our midfield, started finding those passing range. There was one through ball again he gave to Werner where he cuts in, but he gets fouled. And there were a few other little intricate plays that Ziyech did just before he got subbed off. So you're spot on about the fact that he must have sort of, maybe Frank himself must have said, hey, you just need to get yourself more involved in this game. Drop deep if you have to. As you said, if you're isolated, drop deep. So that was good to see. In regards to the main topic in second half, Tammy Abraham, right? And I don't want this to become a bashing session on him, because I truly like the player. I like his attitude, but I feel if you're going to be Chelsea's striker and you want to hold on to this, I tweeted something off the back of the Rennes match that Tammy's in a fantastic form at the moment, and Pulisic can't just walk into it. And I think you agreed on that as well, that Pulisic needs to. On our last stream, we talked about Pulisic, and we both agreed that he needs to find himself, his way back into the team again if Tammy continues 100%. Like this. But for me, that's the exact match that will drop Tammy and bring Pulisic back in, because you can't be. I mean, the type of crosses Reece James was putting in, Dominic Calvert-Lewin would put that. You just know. Yeah. So, what do you think is the issue here? Because we've now seen Tammy for quite a bit of time, season and a half. And he's been alongside with Giroud. You'd think he'd be picking up these skills. What seems to be the issue here, where he's always a centimetre away from hitting those in?
Yeah, that's what you've just said there right at the end is the feeling I get every time he misses a chance. Is always this far away. I haven't been a pro myself, semi-pro tops. And I played up front myself. I think what it is he overthinks things. So, what happens with these strikers is they can be quite streaky sometimes. And that comes because there'll be times where they overthink things, and there'll be times where it's just natural and they'll just start finishing and getting that confidence because they've scored in 3 games in a row. And then that's when you don't want to drop a striker. Now you can see Dominic Calvert-Lewin's even dropped off, but at the start of the season, everything was going in. I think Tammy needs to be in the box a lot quicker than he is. So he tries to get involved in link-up play a little bit too much. And I wouldn't necessarily say that's his strength. I'd love our playmakers to handle that. And he remains in the box and just be a box striker. He'll get more goals that way because he's always arriving. Exactly. He's always arriving that little bit too late because he's sprinting in. And it's just, you want an early cross as a striker. That's when you score. You don't want it when everyone's set because then it's gonna have to be on the money, the ball. So he needs to be in the box sooner and then he'll get more luck. Unfortunately, you're right. I think that is the type of game to drop him because in these big games, to win a title especially, you need to take your chances. You must. You just have to.
The crazy part is, Jan, he had, people say 3, I'd say 2 clear-cut second half crosses that came in. And he was up against Rodon, I believe, for Spurs. I've never even heard of Rodon. I'm not even sure if you've heard of him. So, someone like Tammy should really be bossing that against him.
Yeah, he should have revelled in it and just absolutely dominated him and gone for him every single time.
Yeah.
I'm actually, the more I think about it, I'm quite disappointed the fact that he didn't actually use his pace against Dyer and this guy because I saw Rodon doesn't look that fast either. He really should have just absolutely burnt them time and time again. I think he did it once to maybe Eric Dyer in the first half where he just rounded him and tried to get across him.
Yeah.
We needed to see that another 2 or 3 times, where he's just going for them. But unfortunately, it just wasn't his day. And, maybe he does need a little bit of time sitting back and get that fire back in his belly. I mean, he's going to play in December. There's going to be plenty of game time. But I think Pulisic will come in now. Cho will come in, or even Giroud will start because you just need that clinicalness, and we didn't have it yesterday. He didn't have it.
Man, this is the thing about Tammy, isn't it, man? As much as you want to keep backing him and I don't want to be reactionary. A lot of people will say, oh, you just backed him in the last few matches, one poor game, and you want to now, bring Pulisic back. It's not that. It's more the sense that, as you said, that clinicalness. You want the Chelsea striker. If you imagine Didier Drogba, his tenure, he would have loved crosses like that, and you can just see him rattle those headers bullet headers into the net, and the keeper's got no chance. And as you said, someone like Tammy, when he would have seen the team sheet for Spurs, he should have been licking his tongues like, oh, I'm gonna have a field day against Rodon today because I'm gonna pressure him. I'm gonna make him earn his money today. And you're right, man. I feel like these are the type of games where if Tammy's not showing up, you sort of have to start saying to yourself, well, it's great that you're scoring goals against, Krasnodar or Rennes or Newcastle, but these are the games that matter the most. And besides the Premier League, and if you can't seem to hit these away, it really, really starts putting question marks against your long-term sort of place. But nonetheless, let's get into the whole. Let's look at the player analysis now. We kind of talked a little bit about the whole first half, second half. I want to now look through just quickly the player analysis and get your thoughts on how you rate their performances and whatnot. First of all, Mendy, man, yet another clean sheet, a couple of good saves, and there was some stats, something like more than 16 hours of game that he's played for Chelsea, and he's only conceded 3 goals. How do you feel about this particular player?
Well, I should have fact checked this before saying it, but I'm pretty sure I saw I think Olivia Bazoglu, she tweeted out saying something like Mendy has now got the most clean sheets in the league, and he started a month after everyone. I think it was her. Apologies if not.
Wow.
But I mean, wow.
Insane.
It's so good. I mean, what I like about him is he's even getting a bit more confident now than he was at the start. So what I mean by that is you can see him, he's outside of his penalty area, and he's actually starting to start the play. So, he's been a bit more of a sweeper keeper as well. And his kicking as well is actually decent, He's just solid, mate. And that's all we wanted. That's all we ever wanted with a keeper. I really like him. In fact, he was one of the best players in the game for me. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think I'd have to agree as well. As I said, a couple of really good saves that he's made and kept us in. Thiago Silva and Zuma, I felt they were quite strong. Once again, Thiago Silva was very, very astute at the back. Zuma right at the end had a mistime pass that would have been dangerous. Lo Celso ended up getting the ball, and luckily enough, Lo Celso made the wrong decision. Overall, you're still confident with this particular partnership, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think sometimes you get away with some, don't you? You just, everyone makes mistakes. Sometimes you get away with them. I mean, look, Thiago Silva, the man himself, he made one against West Brom. He didn't have much game time, didn't get away with it. It's highlighted more. Zuma got away with it. And, he was lucky to, but that doesn't take anything away from his performance before that. Solid defender. And same with Silva. I mean, the partnership's just unreal. They communicate well. They read each other well. Zuma's learning a lot from Silva. And, they play the ball well too. There's nothing wrong with the partnership at all. Absolutely love it. And aerially as well. You can't beat them. So, yeah.
There's Zuma, baby.
Zuma. I mean, they are one of the top partnerships in the league right now. No one can say otherwise. Absolutely.
Nah, true, man. True talks. We've already covered the Reece James, Chilwell. We both have said that they've been dynamic going forward and defending. They've been great as well. In terms of Kante, for me, man, I thought once again he was an engine in the midfield. The way he sort of took care of Kane. Kane was nullified most of the times, and he was tracking Kane. And even some of the battles with Ndombele was very good for Kante. Overall, I felt he had a very strong game once again. The question I have for you, there's a lot of talk about Declan Rice. We've all sort of heard about this. And I know he's a special player. He's a very good player. But, man, I like Kante in the defensive midfield position. And even if we end up getting someone like Declan Rice, I can't see Kante being dropped.
No, he's back to his best, really, isn't he? He looks at home in that position. I must admit, I never thought that he would. I never saw him as a lone DM. I thought he'd be good in a pivot. I thought that's what he would prefer, but actually, he's proven me wrong. Solid player. I think he just took a little bit of time to adjust back to it in terms of ball playing, and that's when everyone was raising their eyebrows, thinking, "Well, you're not really progressing the ball." But he was absolutely fine yesterday, tracking Kane, tracking anyone, tracking Son. Like you said, the battles with Ndombele, it was brilliant, and he's just reaffirming his status as the best defensive midfielder in the world. You just can't get away from the guy. I would hate to play against him. I don't understand this guy with his tackling, how he always gets his short little legs in and makes the opposition player fall over. He gets the ball, turns around, runs off. He's just brilliant, smiling as well, obviously. But no, I absolutely love him. He's undroppable. Even if we do get Rice, I mean, maybe we'll play a pivot then. Who knows? But he needs to play. He just does.
Nah, man, absolutely spot on. I think you hit it perfectly in the sense even his ball playing ability is getting better. Like his little touches, intricate one-touch passes is getting better, which is helping us build up on the back. So kudos to him. Attacking ends for Kovacic and Mason Mount. I think both had a pretty okay game. Mount had a cracking shot in the second half where he took a player on, then cut in and hit it with his left. He hit one with his left, and there was one with his right where Lloris made a big save. I think that was going in, that second one.
Yeah, it was it had swerve on it. That save, they didn't big it off enough. What a save. I mean, I don't want to drag a man down, but you know who probably would have let that in. if it were the other way around. It's so true, though. you already know the answer. It's unfortunate difference, we let something like that in if he was in goal, and you could see the difference with a world-class keeper. That was a fantastic save. And yeah, I mean, just going on to what you said, the one criticism I had of both number 8s, if you like, let's say Kovacic and Mount, was just, I think in that position, I think they played well, but we needed cutting edge. We needed more of those Mount shots. We needed more through balls from them. We needed a Frank Lampard-like performance, I think, a Kevin De Bruyne-like performance from one of them to really unlock this Spurs defence. And at least we got flashes from Mount. I'd say that's the only criticism I had with Kovacic. He tried. Don't get me wrong. He actually progressed the ball quite well when he was dribbling. But, just that last third stuff was maybe missing. But other than that, great performance from both, I think. Good performance.
You're spot on, man. I think, and this is what we sort of touched on earlier in this particular show, is that both are good, they're efficient, but it's that cutting edge, man. It's that key pass, that strike, that robustness, as you said, someone like Kevin De Bruyne or Frank Lampard-esque, or even Yaya Toure, kind of robust up and down runner, we just missed that. And I'm hoping Kai Havertz, when he's completely fit and he's going to start, I hope we do go back into him being one of the attacking 8s and Ziyech in the wings, as opposed to him in the wings, and because we saw that subs coming off with Ziyech coming off and Kai Havertz coming in. I don't really like Kai Havertz always in the wings area. I think it would suit him to be in the midfield. So let's see what happens there. This is where we miss Ruben Loftus-Cheek, right? Like someone like his sort of caliber at his peak would have been fantastic. Now, moving on to the front part of the match, we've sort of touched on Ziyech. We've talked a lot about Tammy Abraham. Timo Werner. Once again, my assessment on Timo Werner is that I think we're going to see him shift back into being a centre forward, and Pulisic will come in. As good as Werner is, I suppose, on the left, I mean, he's not the best, but with his pace and his ability to roam around. But let's face it, I think he's far more efficient being centrally and really trying to create a lot of havoc. Because someone like Timo, as we were talking about Tammy, really taking advantage of Dyer and Rodon. I think Timo, if he was in the middle, he really would have taken advantage of them. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think Timo on the left wing is an inside forward. He's not any kind of playmaker, really, is he? And that's where we were lacking. And we know what he could do up front as a striker. Fantastic player. And he would have had Dyer and Rodon on toast. He would have. He just, there would have been a moment, at least one or two, where he would have just absolutely. Yeah, at least, man. The German Sonic the Hedgehog or Dash from the Incredibles, one of the two. Yeah. He would have done it, and we need to see him in the middle, and I think he needs to do it. He needs to play in the middle. I think playing on the left is affecting him a little bit, and I think he would have certainly done more yesterday than Tammy in the end. But also at the same time, I think he needs a rest. I don't necessarily see him starting against Sevilla. I wouldn't want him to. I'd actually go with Giroud up front, just because I think that mental break, not as well as physical break, but the mental break as well, just needs to come on with a bit of fire in his belly, get a goal or something, and then, it's reset everything, go on from there.
No, absolutely, man. I think, look, we are through to the round of 16. Yes, of course, we want to be first in the Champions League group, but I feel with Pulisic now being back, Werner can be given a bit of rest. And you're right, someone like Giroud probably plays up front with Pulisic on the left wing, and perhaps Werner, if need be, we've got 5 subs, he can come off the bench. He
true.
probably just needs that mental sort of peace and rest, so he just comes back flying after that. Now let's talk about. Obviously, we've sort of touched on the first half, second half, overall match summary, fair analysis. got some talking points, and I've got a mixed bag of a few talking points I want to go through with you. First of all, we've already talked about the 4-3-3 and the attacking eights and Kante and how the issues around the not being robust in the attacking eights players at times. So we won't go into too much of that. I want to talk about Ndombele. I want to talk about something different. Talk about a few other players and other teams and whatnot. Ndombele last season was highly criticised, but this season I've seen a couple of matches of Spurs and he's been very, very impactful. Even this game, especially in the first half, as we've already touched on, that second half, Spurs just didn't even try. Like they just hunted and just parked the bus. But your thoughts on Ndombele, man? I think this guy's turning out to be a bit of a special player.
Yeah, he's good, isn't he? Last season, I was laughing at Spurs, and I got a couple of Spurs mates, and I was saying, "Oh, he's just a five-side player." I kind of still stick by that. I mean, he'd be one of the best five-side players in the Premier League. Some of the things he did yesterday, it had me worried. I was thinking there was the turn he did between, I think it was Silva and Kante of all people. He managed to get between them. It's like
like whoa.
Whoa. I mean, he's very similar to Kovacic. I don't think there's an end product from him necessarily, but the dribbling side, the progressing the ball side of things. He's good, man.
I think he's a little bit more physical than Kovacic. I think that's what I like about him. Like he's got that physique in him.
Absolutely. Defensively, maybe there's a couple of question marks there, but certainly I think Spurs have got themselves a very good player. And we'll see what he can do. He never seems to be able to complete in 90 minutes, but maybe he doesn't need to, such a player. It was a good performance from him, definitely.
No, absolutely. I want to now talk about Sergio Reguilon. Now, this guy was one of my players that I had propaganda for him, left, right, and centre. Look, I am so thankful we have Ben Chilwell. I wasn't one of those guys. I'm not going to lie about it. I wasn't one of those guys that were advocating for his purchase. But I am so glad that Frank has gone with someone like Ben Chilwell. But it also gives me good heart that all the propaganda and all the people that believed in Sergio Reguilon as well, and there were heaps of people that were saying, these people don't even watch the La Liga, he's probably not even that great. But it feels like we've been vindicated in the sense that all the matches he's played so far, he's starting to look like a very, very good left back, man. And I think in this Premier League, we are now starting to see quite a few good fullbacks. And would you consider him as one of the better ones as well?
Yeah, he's starting to look like that. I mean, I think he needed some time to adjust to the league, but he looks at home. He had a decent game yesterday. I still prefer Ben Chilwell. There's no doubt about that. Sure. And I'm in the same boat as you. I wasn't actually necessarily advocating for him in the first place. At the start of the year, it is what it is. But he's proven me wrong. Great player. But Reguilon, he looks all right. He looks like a good player. He's certainly one of the probably top 5 left backs in the league. But isn't he on loan? So
I think he is. It's not a permanent solution. Yeah.
Whoops, because I think he's probably going to go back to Real Madrid, or unless Tottenham can afford to pay, whatever his fee will be. That's questionable as well. I know Real Madrid obviously have Marcelo, who's probably on his way out soon,
and Mendy.
Yeah. So it'd be interesting.
Yeah. No, that's good talk. I mean, I don't know what the future of Chelsea Football Club is in terms of left back position, but look, I think Emerson and Alonso are definitely not part of this conversation in terms of being futures in Chelsea. I've always advocated that we need someone like Martin to be given some opportunities behind Chilwell so we can grow him. But if we don't go in that avenue, imagine having Chilwell and Sergio Reguilon as your 2 left backs, taking care of the Premier League and Champions League. Talk about strength in depth.
That would be unreal. That would be unreal. I mean, that would be like our right side. No one, as much as we love Reece James, he's been good. You know, when Cesar's Piliqueta plays, no one's got a problem with that. It would be the same thing, wouldn't it? Imagine that.
Imagine that. It'd be crazy. But now, let's talk about the whole, we haven't touched on this completely, and I wanted to keep it as a talking point. I know it was a boring nil. I get it. And it was a stalemate. But I think if we look at some of the positives, we really took care of Kane and Son in that entire match. Like, we did not let them have their way. Kane tried to drop deep. Kante seemed like he was sort of man-marking him as well, sort of chasing him everywhere. Son was pretty much nullified by our fullbacks most times. I honestly didn't see too much of Kane and Son. So surely you would have taken some heart out of that.
Massively so. Massively so. Yeah, those two, I call them Batman and Robin. They were MIA, man. I mean, what happened to them? You know, they will fear. I think quietly, the next time we play them, they'll be thinking, oh, you know, Thiago Silva, Kurt Zouma, Ben Chilwell, Reece James, and N'Golo Kante. They literally were nullified. I know part of that reason was probably Jose's tactics, but then the direct comparison is the Man City game where they ran riot, you know? So, you know, we were doing something right. And that was one of the positives to come out of that game, definitely. They did not have a sniff. And even, I need to highlight one thing. One of the reasons I call Reece the Hulk James, he bodied Kane. And I don't see that often. He bodied him. He put him down. He put him down, and it was like a posterized dunk shot, you know, when they get him down and they just stand over them looking at him like this. He just looked at him on the floor. He was like, well, what? Get up. So I think that just that highlights the fact that they just got absolutely nullified, and the defense definitely won that battle.
100%. And how good does it feel? Because this would have been a game last season where someone like Kane and Son would have ran havoc. I can just see the grimace in your face, like, don't remind me of last season and this. But yeah, like that definitely showed that our defensive structure and some of the things that our team is doing behind the scenes defensively. You know, we can sit here and be frustrated. I was frustrated against Sevilla, the 0 against them. I was okay against Man United, the 0 we had there. Here another 0 against Spurs. But I'm starting to feel that if you want to be a champion team, you need to be defensively very strong, and you know, to be able to nullify players like Son and you know, Kane. As you've said, you know, these two have been Batman and Robin of the league so far, where they've just been banging goals and assisting goals. So fantastic to see in regards to that. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about in the talking point before we wrap things up in this particular match review, a lot of people have been talking about, and they've been sort of harping on about, I saw this post sort of match yesterday. Obviously, to all the people that don't know, I didn't watch the match live. I was absolutely exhausted. It was 3:30 a.m. in the morning, the match. So I'll watch the match later on. But I saw a lot of the comments post-match. One of the key ones, Jam, was, Frank Lampard kept the subs too late once again. You know, that was a game that we could have had. And, you know, he had a lot of, you know, firepower in the bench, and he could have done it. And a lot of the big sort of influencers in social media had come out and said that as well. I personally, and I really want to get your point of view on this, and I don't want you to get influenced in what I'm about to say. So I want completely your thoughts on it. I didn't think he kept it too late. I just thought that, as I said, he wanted to be cautious, didn't want to lose this match. And I feel we did enough in the second half to score a goal anyway. Like, Tammy missed the opportunity. Mason Mount's shot was saved big time by Hugo Lloris. You know, Ziyech was coming into the game. You know, Pulisic, he was not fit, so he comes in, he gets a bit of minutes. Kai Havertz is not fit, he comes in, gets a bit of minutes. Possibly Giroud is maybe one you could say, why didn't he come a lot quicker? But I can't be too critical about Frank Lampard. I mean, how do you feel about that?
On the whole, I actually agree with you. I think you know, the key thing is, you said Pulisic not fit, Havertz not fit, so you can't really expect too many more minutes from them, if you like. Now, what I will say is I think Giroud could have come on earlier. However, Gary Neville on Sky Sports had a great point. He said that Tammy was all over any set piece that Tottenham had, any corner, any free, bang, straight out.
Yeah.
Now, I know that Giroud could probably do the same job, but a recent example was against Rennes when Tammy went off. They scored straight away from a corner. And maybe Tammy could have, got that out, but I think that's why he may have held on to the Tammy Giroud substitution. The frustrating thing, I think, is if you're trying to win the game, so you're thinking on the front foot more than on the back foot, actually, you should have just made that sub around the 60th minute, maybe 70th, and Giroud would have gobbled up those crosses. I think if you think on the front foot, that's a criticism for him. Now, every other sub I haven't got a problem with. I think the timing was fine. Just Giroud, I personally would have gone sooner, absolutely. But it's not like a red mark against his name. It's just one of those things I would have done differently. A small thing, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, I think sometimes fans, I don't know, man, they just expect wins and wins and wins. And okay, fair enough. You've got every right to feel that way, but we've got to be objective as well. I get a bit emotional in matches at times, but watching that, I just sort of thought we had enough. We had enough to score. Like, it wasn't as if you can turn around and say, hey, Frank, you did nothing in the second half. Like, the plan was quite straightforward in the second half, try and give Reece James enough room to bang in those crosses and put the quality balls in, which he did. Try and create some space in midfield and open yourself up for some shots, which we did. And it just never got paid off. So, I can't really blame anyone here, besides the fact that we weren't clinical enough. So, overall, I think it's a bit harsh to sort of off the back of that match and say, Frank's not, he's not worthy. Once again, his in-game management was poor. That game was there for us to be taken and whatnot and so on and so forth. So, look, that's the whole match review. Some final thoughts from you, Jam, man. We've got the Champions League game coming up, and we've got Leeds next week, which is going to be interesting against Bielsa. How's your outlook now off the back of this match against Spurs?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to give Spurs credit. They got their job done. That was their tactics. It was to come away with a draw at the very least, and you've got to give them credit as well as saying it was a little bit disappointing. So I think the outlook it actually looks really good. I think we can get a result against Sevilla. And I think we will get a result against Leeds. That's at home, isn't it? So, I think what we need to do is we need to freshen it up a little bit, give some players a bit of rest. Werner, Tammy, they certainly need the rest. I think it would be nice. It's hard to see if he would risk this, but it would be nice to see Pulisic and Cho start to get some minutes, and Havertz start as well. I think Havertz will start. Pulisic maybe not, but it would be nice to see them start. Giroud up front, I would go, and Werner, Tammy on the bench, and Ziyech on the right wing. Put Cesar Azpilicueta in as well. And I think we can get a result. I'm expecting 2 W's this week. Actually, I don't think Sevilla's form is that impressive. So it's a tough place to go, mind you, though. Very tough place to go. The Ramon Sanchez Pizjuan or whatever it's called. I've probably butchered that. But even Spain have a formidable record there. They go and play their national home games there when they need a result. So not an easy place to go. I think we can get a W. That will be our first W in a big game, which is needed, by the way. That needs to happen so we could just move on from that. But overall, all good.
No, man, I like that sort of attitude you've got in regards to giving Pulisic a start. Perhaps even Pulisic and Cho. That'd be very, very interesting, to be honest. And someone like Ziyech probably just take a bit of break and concentrate a little bit more on the league side of things. Havertz as well. Like we've got depth, man. We've got depth, so we should be
This is
using
it.
that depth to our absolute best. So yeah, man. Just like you, I sort of think that we should get 2 W's. I know the Sevilla game is going to be very interesting, and as you said, it's going to be a tough place to go, and it's going to be great. But I'm really looking forward to the game against Leeds, man. This whole
Yeah.
Bielsa thing and this rivalry between Lampard and Bielsa and Lampard and Leeds themselves is very interesting to see. And Leeds coming off a victory as well away from home, which was very, very good. It's going to be very good to see how Frank tackles a very technical type of team, because Leeds, everything they do it with a purpose and they do it with a particular intention. Every time, I don't know how many times you've seen Leeds, Jam.
Yeah.
We'll wrap it up very soon. Every time I've seen Leeds, I feel like every move that they're making, it is all training session drills. It is all Bielsa took a paper out and he drew it out. These are the patterns of play you're going to play against this team. And that's exactly what they do. Like, is that how you feel as well with them? That this is more like a tactical thing?
Absolutely. I mean, I've already got visions when you were saying that of Bielsa squatting on that water box of his, that ice box, and it's just everything has has a thought behind it. You're absolutely right. It is an awkward game. Let's be honest. It's an awkward game, and if we're not at it, then we'll get Sheffield United from last season. It will happen. It will happen. Now, what I would say is that Leeds have had some decent performances this season. But overall, in the big games, they've been taught lessons defensively. I think their defense is not great. They concede a lot of goals. It might be at the cost of the way they play. So you've got to think, with us being at home, if that matters anymore. Oh, we've got fans back.
We've got fans back. Yeah.
We've got 2,000 fans in the stadium. It might make a difference. But yeah, I think with us being a home team, with our 2,000 fans, we should certainly go out there, be the favourites with our record as well, scoring goals. I think we'll go back to winning ways in that one.
Brilliant, man. Brilliant. Well, that wraps us up for this particular match review. Guys, thank you so much for everyone that sort of tuned in and tuned out, whatever you've done throughout this whole session. You've been coming in, and thank you heaps for all the comments that you've made as well. And special thank you to Jam, of course, for coming in. And guys, I've got a special announcement coming up, which I won't make right now. There'll be many segments in this particular channel that will happen over the next few days, and then obviously they'll become a permanent fixture. And in one of these segments, you will see a lot more of Jam, and we will continue this partnership. So, guys, thank you so much once again for coming along, and Jam, thank you heaps. Until next time, see ya.
Thanks, man.